Hello, UCAR. Peter Christensen here, coming to you from the CEO's desk. Woo! Time is here in my hand. Many months of work by the Forums Committee, and we can finally start talking about them. So very exciting. Going to talk today about the exclusive buyer-broker agreement, the new version that will help you with the August 17th compliance deadline, I guess. So going forward, this will be the new agency agreement for the UAR for the state of Utah. So this knowing that the timing of getting these signed might change for some agents, where you got to get these signed before you tour a property with a buyer. And so it's kind of awesome because you get that agency agreement signed early, which is what I think I've been preaching in classes for years and years, is get these things signed and go through them, make an event of going through it. Well, now you're going to kind of have to, because the timing is pushed up to make sure you have it done by touring a property. Okay, so understanding that at that point, there are a lot of different circumstances, everything from long-term buyers, repeat buyers, clients, and people you've met for the first time, maybe are meeting for the first time at the property. This form is designed to be very flexible to meet the needs of your circumstance for that client, to make sure they're comfortable and you're comfortable with the agreement, and you get it all in writing. So, and it's reformatted. A lot of the concepts in the buyer-broker agreement, most of the concepts are pretty much the same. A lot of similarities, I should say. But it's formatted, I think, in a better way for having a good conversation. So the key is to explain the deal really well to your client. And so they know going into the deal, going into the transaction, entering into this agreement, they know what they're signing up for. And I don't think that's a new concept for a lot of our agents, because I think realtors in Utah have been doing it right for a long time. And so let's get into it. So the first thing you're going to have to deal with is the duration of the agreement. Now, this is a little bit different. Now it's formatted not for like, hey, this many days or months or whatever. It's formatted with an end date. So a little less confusing, in my opinion, that way. So you're just setting, hey, this is effective until, and here's the end date. And so just know as you're signing this and you're filling this out with the buyer and discussing it, I mean, that's the end of your promise to get paid, is right there, is on the end date. So think of it in those terms. You know, if I show them this property, how long do I want to promise to be paid? So you put the end date in there. So that's nice. And then you go through the and by the way, we're not going to go through every section of this today. I'm just highlighting a couple, I think, of the biggest important sections to know as you go forward with this. And I anticipate we'll do, multiple videos. Okay. So then you have the properties or location. And so this is, again, as you're approaching the buyer and you're signing this, what does this agreement cover? So we've got an end date. We know how long it'll cover it, but for what? What properties does it cover? And so you say it's the same concept that's in the current one, right? This address, this location only, or a county, right? It's actually switched. It's county first, then address, location. But it's formatted in a way where they're two separate concepts instead of all within one paragraph and two blanks. So they're kind of separated out, which is awesome, because there was a lot of confusion. You were always only supposed to fill out one of those, but people would sometimes fill in both, and then it was ambiguous. Does it cover the county? Does it cover just that address? And then, very confusing. I suppose you could even put multiple addresses in there. And so if you know you're going to go see 3 houses that day and your buyer only wants to really sign an agreement for the properties you're seeing that day, you could put in multiple properties as well, and not make it as broad if they're not comfortable with that, or if you're not comfortable with that. So remember, it's an or. It should only be a county or multiple counties or addresses, right? Okay. And then there's a little blurb below that, again, same concept was in the current one, but it's now broken out. Unless checked below, the buyer warrants that the buyer has not entered into a representation agreement with another brokerage and has no obligation to pay compensation to any other company arising out of the acquisition of a property identified in the previous section. This is going to be really important. It's to your benefit to make sure they understand, because buyers are likely going to be signing these earlier than maybe they have been. And so there's the worry out there that there will be competing buyer broker agreements, and we don't want those. It's not in your best interest, the client's best interest. Obviously, it's a problem if that happens. So it's imperative that you have the discussion with your buyer as whether it's a long-term buyer, a new buyer, whatever the relationship is, that they understand, hey, I don't want you obligated to pay commission to more than one brokerage. So if you've toured a property, you've probably signed something, because that's going to be the way going forward. So please let me know. And it's going to be really in your best interest to make sure they understand, hey, have you signed another one of these? Because I don't want to double obligate you. And then you've got this checkbox below. So it references unless checked below. And this is a spot where you can exclude certain properties. So let's say a buyer has gone through and they saw 2 or 3 properties, but they have property-specific buyer broker agreements. Well, perhaps you're going with a county-wide one. Well, you can exclude those, and you can say, buyer, just let me know, because we can exclude any properties that you have an agreement for, because I don't want to interfere with that, and I don't want you double obligated to pay. But if we put a county in here for ours, I got to make sure we exclude any that you're already obligated under a buyer broker agreement with. So make sure you explain that really well, and they understand, and can so you can sort that out, so they're not entering into one of these every time they go see a house and they have 4 county-wide buyer broker agreements. That's what we absolutely don't want to see. We don't want that to happen. And so explaining to them in the first place what they're signing and what it obligates them for. So if they go see something else and you've got a county-wide one, you let them know, hey, I'm your agent for the whole county, and have them understand that, so that they don't go and double obligate themselves and create a problem. Okay. And then the brokerage fee. We're going to talk about this, then we'll stop on this video. But the brokerage fee, again, very, very similar, right? This is what I expect to get paid. The big difference is now the rules, because of the settlement, say this sets your compensation. So you cannot take any more than you agree to in the buyer broker agreement. So you can't put something in there and hope a seller is going to offer you more in a deal, because you're tied to what's in this buyer broker agreement. So put in there what you expect to get paid, what you're willing to work for, what you have set your value at with that buyer. This is super important. Now you can explain to them, hey, I understand, maybe that's a little daunting as you're entering into the buying process, but we can address it through the purchase contract. We can ask the seller to contribute. There's nothing wrong with us doing that. So we'll negotiate it with every deal before it's final. So you're not going to be obligated to pay something without knowing it. We'll know with every offer how much you need to come up with, buyer, per this agreement, because of how we negotiate each individual offer. And so hopefully, and you guys are way better at that than I am, at articulating that and selling your value. But it's going to be important that you put in there what it is, how much you expect to get paid, and a total amount, and not you can't rely on some higher offer somewhere else because you are bound by what's in here. And then same kind of language. If it's paid by a third party, like the seller perhaps, then it'll offset what they owe you. Again, that's that whole negotiation concept. And then there's some language at the bottom saying, hey, brokerage fees are fully negotiable and they're not set by law or any board or association of realtors or multiple listing service. And they never have been. They never were set by any of those parties. And so that's not new, but it's in there. And a good reminder that, I mean, we're agreeing to this. This is a contract, and we're agreeing to these terms, and great discussion about it, and get everything set, and we should be good. So here's the first crack at it. Hopefully that helps us get started. And remember, this is not legal advice. This is legal information only. If you need specific legal advice, please contact your attorney. The UAR has a few videos on these as well. Look for class opportunities. Look for online opportunities to learn. I think it's super important. Spread the word. We got to get everyone trained on these before the deadline hits, before they're mandatory, and we can get everybody up to speed. And it's all good. It's all good. So thanks for tuning in.